Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Monday, June 17th. Derek and Riper, Saris here with you. On this episode, we dig into a rough weekend of injuries. It seemed like last weekend was a group of promotions, and promotion news this weekend, unfortunately, was an injury theme. So we'll dig into that. I got a few tough hitter rankings as the next set of hitter rankings drops on Tuesday. And we'll talk about where the money went, as we do each and every Monday. A bit of a challenging fab run for us with Father's Day overlapping the Sunday pickups. Happens every year. It's not a surprise. We know it's coming. We'll also talk about a few of the tough cuts that were made as well. How was your Father's Day?
It was good. I was trying to do FAB from the bar on my phone.
How'd that go?
Not great. I mean, I won some guys, I guess. I did have a couple shares of Mookie. We'll talk about the fallout from that. So that was a sad moment Sunday afternoon. But otherwise, had a great time. Saw my dad, and went to a couple cool beer bars in the city, and just had a day for myself because I had dropped the kids off. I am a bachelor this week.
That's right.
The kids and the wife are in San Diego for baseball camp, and I am here watching the dogs.
Someone had to stay home and watch the dogs.
That's right.
I sent you a picture yesterday on Father's Day. There was a special at a grocery store. I don't know where exactly in the country this was happening. It's very distinctly American, I think, though. It was a T-bone steak on the styrofoam with the plastic over the top and 2 tall boy beers. And it was weird because usually it was a combination of Colt 45 and Space Dust, like a pretty
so
good
you got
IPA.
an IPA and a sweet lager. Yeah, I thought it looked like the Sad Dad combo.
It was $9.99 and it was a decent looking T-bone too. I saw it. I was like, wow, that's aggressive. It's like a happy beer and a sad
with
beer
the grill.
Yeah.
There's dinner and drinks all rolled up in one for $9.99.
One piece of styrofoam, 1 sheet of plastic. I just thought, whoa.
That reminds me, when I was in England, there was a show on that said that that it was like how to make dinner when you get back from the bar. And it had a can of beans, and they just cut the top off and put the beans right on the stove. And then he had he was eating it. He put a oven mitt on and just picked up the can and ate out of the can.
The things some people do when they lack comfort in the kitchen, right? Just unreal. I don't know if that's a thing people actually do, but it is funny nonetheless. We're going to start today. We talked about the London series a week ago, Friday, not just 4 days ago. And, we were talking about that series, and you were talking about your experience living in London and the challenges presented just from the time zones alone, and how it was just hard to connect at the time that you lived there with the game, right? And I think over the course of that segment, I think there's a couple things we really should have done differently. Number one, I feel like I should have presented the significant number of folks we know and we see on Twitter from all over Europe loving baseball, covering baseball, and just being excited for that series. That was a huge part of the conversation that I wish I had brought to the table. I was thinking about everything about the series in the sense of, are we going to put a team in London someday? Like, what is Major League Baseball's plan here long term? And not thinking enough about just, hey, there are a lot of people that are going to go to their first baseball games live. And that's such an important moment in fanhood. And, I'm frustrated with myself because that easily should have been a focus of the conversation. And it wasn't part of our conversation at all.
Yeah. And, it just, I made a bunch of mistakes that I'm making more as an old man. Not only did I screw up time zones, my God, good job there. That I still do that as a producer. I still
can confirm
time zones.
Yep.
I also did something that's such an old stupid man thing, which is like I was working on information that was true when I was in London.
Yeah, it's been a little while since you lived there.
Happened to 20 years ago. So yes, there are probably some more pubs with baseball on than there were 20 years ago. Good job, and then lastly, I kind of I think my biggest mistake was I was trying to speak of my personal experience and the difficulties that I had as a fan in London. And there's two mistakes there I made, which is just sort of extrapolating that my experience was the average experience. And then I'd never made the flip, which is, once you have chosen to be a fan, you're a fan that should be lauded because you're overcoming so much. Like you're watching games at 2 a.m. Like you're a real fan,
Right. There's a level of passion that you have to have for anything when you are watching it in the middle of the night or at strange hours. And when it's not something that is beloved by everyone around you.
Not on your local, the BBC's not doing a little, doing a little update about baseball every night. So, so really just shout out to Bat Flips and Nerds, and Joel Four Bases does a really great preview every season, like an actual print preview that goes out in London. And then there's all the UK baseball, there's Astros baseball UK. There's a lot of team specific accounts that we interact with all the time on Twitter. And I just didn't put the two and two together to be like, yeah, you're diminishing their fanhood. And that is not what I meant to do at all. I myself encountered baseball for the first time in Germany. Like, how stupid is it for me to somehow stumble into telling people they're not legit fans or gatekeeping anyway? I'm honestly just when I started getting that feedback, I was devastated. So I was just trying to speak from my own experience, and that it was difficult without lauding the people that are doing it, and realizing that probably it's made a little less difficult since then. There's different ways to, you don't necessarily have to watch it at 2 a.m. You can watch it on delay. We now have that option, like
LA TV.
Yeah. And this specifically, the bar that they kept showing was kind of impressive. I don't know if that bar was around when I was there, but I would have been there a lot if I could have been. So apologies from my heart to the UK baseball crew. And how about this? You guys beat us in the WBC. That'd be fun.
You're going to put that on America? Okay.
Yeah. I give you one free win over the American WBC team.
I hope you've got that kind of control. It'd be a great story if it plays out that way. But no, to echo what you're saying, we never want to diminish anyone's fanhood. We want people to love baseball because we love baseball, and it does not at all matter where you are in this world. We hope you enjoy the game as much as we do. We want to support you in the love of that game. So really sorry for the way that segment was put together. It's not what we're about at all as a show or as people. So our sincerest apologies to all of you. Let's get to some injury fallout. There was a lot. Mookie Betts gets hit by a pitch in the left wrist, and it's a fractured bone. The way Dave Roberts has described it so far, Mookie does not need surgery, so that's good news.
Which means it's non-displaced, most likely. I mean, I've had this situation where they thought it was non-displaced and did not do surgery, and then 3 weeks later, we're like, oh, I guess it was displaced. Thank you, Stanford Healthcare. Really good job. Anyway, now I have one thumb that's twice the size of the other thumb. It's great.
I don't think I ever actually noticed that hanging out with you.
Yeah, well, I'll show it to you.
It's all I'm going to think about from now on. If we're sitting around drinking a beer, I'm like, whoa.
Anyway, non-displaced fractures is good news. You do have to wait for the fracture to heal, and bones can often take longer than ligaments because of blood flow. Blood flow to ligaments is a little bit more robust, as I understand it. Again, I'm not a doctor. Might just be wading into some bad territory here, but it's still a non-displaced fracture, so that's a good news.
Yeah, so
surgery is always bad.
No surgery for now. Out for some time is the current vague sort of timetable. And I see sometime. My brain starts with a month.
Yeah,
we're probably.
I think we're talking
post All-Star break.
Yeah.
And this is a team that, of course, we've talked about recently having a problem at shortstop. Mookie's move there, while it's like impressive in the sense that he's doing it, it's not
that
like,
he's capable, but he's not.
It's not
he's
ideal.
not thriving. He's not the best defensive. He's not even in the top half of defensive shortstops.
No, we're probably going to see a lot of Miguel Rojas in the short term, and we'll have to see if this changes their outlook heading into the trade deadline. Is a shortstop a bigger priority for this organization? We had
some feedback of somebody saying, why not Jazz? Which was an interesting idea. But I think that Jazz is pretty far removed from short at this point. I don't know. It just seems like why would we replace a one converted shortstop with another one? You know, like if they want somebody, I feel like it's Bo Bichette.
Yeah, we covered that a little bit at the end of the week. I think it's possible, but with Jazz Chisholm, weren't you surprised in the first place when the Marlins moved him off the dirt, given where they were at the time?
Yeah, which means to me that he's not a shortstop. You know what I mean? Like a team that desperately needed shortstop moved him off a shortstop.
Yeah, I guess I'm not as convinced that I don't think it's a bad idea. I think if you look at the market for trading for shortstops, it's usually thin. Most teams don't have a shortstop to trade.
Yeah, I'm looking and sellers right now. Just as a little side moment, I did see a piece post by maybe not Robert Orr, Bobby Orr from Baseball Prospectus, that somebody could decide to be a seller that's in that, like, you know, everybody's 500 in the NL and could surprise us. So who would pull off a surprise sell?
Well,
the Cardinals have a Tommy Edman.
It's been a long road back for Tommy.
We did get a little bit of good news that he is now, I think, going out on rehab.
Yeah, finally ready for some live at bats. So, I mean,
actually, it's live at bats. For some reason, it's not even rehab. They're really slow walking this. He's doing live at bats before he goes out on rehab.
Right. It might be a week or so away from the rehab assignment.
Weird, dude. There's something wrong with his wrist.
Yeah, it does not sound like a good situation at all. So I think it is being more creative. But to answer your question, I mean, what would you need as a team to give up on even reasonable playoff hopes? Like we'll talk a lot about the parity around the league and whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing on our episode tomorrow with Britt. But like, what's going to convince you?
Vargas and Outman. Like, that seems like maybe two major league regulars that are ready to play right now.
I don't know. I mean, if Outman was a regular, wouldn't he be playing for the Dodgers right now? Like
he's flawed.
I'm not trying to ding him. It's more of the question of, hey, look, this guy's already 27 years old. If it were going to happen for him again, if he was going to repeat what he did in 2023, or if the Dodgers believed he could do it, he'd be part of their regular playing time mix.
But also, just shortstop is such a festering wound if you don't have one. You know what I mean? It's like people just want to have a shortstop. You know what I mean? It's like before you have the rest of the team in place, can we have a shortstop? It's almost like the quarterback of the NFL, right? It's like you want to have a shortstop. Like, think of all the things that people have gone through. Think about all the ups and downs the Reds have gone through with Ellie De La Cruz at shortstop, but they want to have a shortstop. So Ellie's their shortstop. O'Neal Cruz can't hit lefties. Guess what? He's still in lineup against lefties because he's their shortstop. So are the Pirates going to trade O'Neal Cruz? No,
of course not.
Yeah. Would the Cubs trade Dansby Swanson as bad as he's been? No, I don't think so. Giants can't find a shortstop. Perdomo?
I mean, if you look at something like defensive runs saved, actually Mookie by defensive runs saved comes out as a 4+4.
That's interesting.
But he's average. -5 on outs above average.
It's pretty low down. Yeah.
I saw a question on our Discord about this. You know, how do you know which defensive metrics to believe when they disagree?
I'll say one thing about DRS that's kind of cool is that it's all encompassing. So DRS includes arm and everything, and outs above average does a little bit more of splitting things out. into like what they did on the couch versus what they did on the throw. And so like you actually have to, there's an outs above average stat that's like more like DRS, right? There's, what is it? It's not outs above average. It's like they have a run saved number.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's the fielding run value? Is that the one?
Yeah.
FRV on the stat
that number is more
Fangraphs
comparable to DRS because it's combining different aspects. Outs above average is kind of a clinical look at just what happens, I think, at the catch point, at the play point. Then there's the throw and all that,
Right. Yeah. FRV, it says throwing plus blocking plus framing plus arm plus RAA.
Yeah. See,
average. Yeah.
Yeah, that's more complicated. So anyway, I think Mookie's competent, so maybe they'll just do with that. I do think that Miguel Rojas has gotten bigger and older and is not a great shortstop replacement. So maybe what they just do is have a better replacement shortstop. So if you're like looking for that, like maybe the Pirates would give up on like an Alika Williams. Or, you know what I mean? Like these like backup shortstops. I also just like the one I just threw out was Perdomo. It's an interesting one, I think, to throw out there.
Taylor Walls.
Like you just get someone who's defensively a little bit better than Mookie that can come in certain situations and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it might be something like that. I was looking at their organizational depth chart a little more closely, the Dodgers again, just to say like, okay, what's the long-term outlook at shortstop for them? Yoendry Vargas, who's in the Arizona Complex League right now, is 18, was a major international signing going back to, I think, one previous J2 period. He's really interesting, but just far away. And then closer, they have someone named Alex Freeland, a third-round pick out of Central Florida in 2022, who just got moved to Double-A about 6 or so weeks ago now, I think. He's got a 155 WRC plus in 37 games.
22-year-old.
6 homers. Good OBP skills. The scouting reports really pointed more toward arm and glove as the carrying tools, but I think what he's doing at Double-A at least makes Freeland a little bit of a sleeper for me in deeper leagues as someone that may get an opportunity with the Dodgers at some point if he's not part of a trade that gets them more immediate help at the position.
Yeah, it's a little surprising to see Fangraphs has a 20 to 30, 20 present value hit tool on somebody who has a better than average strikeout rate and a better than average swinging strike rate. And they also have a 30-45 game power. Remember, 45 is basically average, even though 40 is supposed to be average. 45 is kind of basically average. So they're saying that he tops out at basically average power, and he's had ISOs over 200 this year. So, there's a little bit of a disconnect between results on the field and the scouting grades.
Yeah, but that's the state of the position right now.
That's better than I thought, actually. They have some guys.
Yeah, it's a little better than I realized. Just that the help isn't immediately on the horizon. And so much of their help seems like it's there when they need it. That's the part that's weird. They do have a built-in replacement for Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He's on the IL with a rotator cuff strain. And at first I heard that and was like, okay, yeah, rotator cuff stuff's usually not great. But I thought, okay, maybe a month or two. The way Dave Roberts described it was not season ending, but not going to throw for a couple of weeks. When you start with not season ending, I think, okay, there's some questions about what you're going to get later on this year from Yamamoto.
I mean, rotator cuff strains are bad. Like just a general rubric, shoulder much worse than elbow.
Right. And the severity of the strain was not in any of the reports I've seen so far. So whether it's 1 or a 2, that makes a huge difference as well. The way he describes it makes me think it's probably more of a 2. Whereas if it were like a 3, you'd have surgery on the table right now. But the good news is Bobby Miller is coming back. The bad news is Bobby Miller's first start coming off the IL will be at Coors Field on Wednesday. Yeah. So on the one hand, built-in cover. On the other hand, maybe not someone you're throwing right back out there immediately, given the difficulty of pitching at Coors, especially in the summer.
Yeah, the state of the Dodgers is interesting because there's a lot of sort of like reaction. It's an intense fans base, but people who and then they're with really high expectations, right, of this Dodgers team. And so I personally think it's one of the best offenses in the big leagues, and they're talking about, we're going to have another October where the offense goes away. And, I think this is a really good team, but now, if I look through it with jaded eyes a little bit, I'm like, well, Walker Buehler does not seem to be who he once was. And James Paxton has the worst peripherals of like any starting pitcher in baseball. So there seems to be kind of a lot on Bobby Miller coming back right now, because Clayton Kershaw was supposedly hitting 89, which means he'd be sitting 87. I don't know. Like I guess there's more questions than I thought there would be for the team that is obviously this good when it comes to going down the line. I think Bobby Miller is pretty important to them.
I do think the Clayton Kershaw situation is better than I expected to be in mid-June. Like, he's going to start a rehab assignment on Wednesday. And even if it's a long rehab assignment where Kershaw is making his way back and slowly building up that velocity, like, getting Kershaw back at all seems like a decent sized win, even if he's not late career peak Kershaw. If he's just competent back end starter Kershaw, they could use that right now. It's still valuable. Oh, look at that little troublemaker.
Yeah, he couldn't be outside.
He's still an aspiring good boy. No,
he's just sad that the whole family's gone and that it's just me.
He's just sitting there. He's just sitting in his room, not even going for walks or anything.
I take him on walks.
No, I don't.
I mean, yeah, Kershaw coming back is. I mean, it would be surprising me. I'm going to admit that I did not think he would pitch this year, and so that could be important. Landon Knack, I actually like. So they have some depth. Gavin Stone, his fastball is improving. And he could see his strikeout rate go up. So I'm not sounding any alarm bells. I think this is a great team. It's just interesting that if you start to fast forward to like what it'll look like in a short series, that somebody like Bobby Miller could have outsized importance to this team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He'll be very important in a playoff rotation, at least as the roster is currently constructed. And as far as those concerns about the Dodgers offense, yeah, they're tied with the Yankees for best WRC plus in baseball, 21% better than league average. They only strike out 21% of the time. These teams are almost identical by offensive performance. The difference is the Dodgers steal a few more bases, the Yankees hit a few more home runs. Mm-hmm. That's about it. It's like nothing.
Really good teams. I think I might take the Dodgers offense too, in terms of, I think it's a slightly more diverse offense in terms of approach. You've got some free swingers, you got some never swingers. You got your Max Muncy. Like Max Muncy and Teoscar Hernandez could not be more different. And then you have the kind of perfect players like Betts and Freeman that make contact and make powerful contact, and like. They fit in any lineup, but you have these like really interesting pieces around them that are kind of more different than the Yankees, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. We've talked about that lineup diversity just being a more challenging group of hitters to navigate because you do different things at the plate. I think the Dodgers do that very well, but I think the Yankees are better than they have been in the past in that regard. I think that's sort of where the Alex Verdugo acquisition during the offseason, it gets overshadowed.
The Volpe swing change makes him more of a contact guy.
Yeah, but you kind of get overshadowed when Juan Soto also gets acquired, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But to have another guy in the lineup that's a low K percentage, tough plate appearance, that's good for a team that occasionally floats into that too much swing and miss sort of territory.
Mm-hmm.
Other injury news to get through here real quick. Corbin Carroll headed for an MRI. I haven't seen the results of that yet. It's on his oblique. I kind of thought, well, at least it's not his shoulder. And he was just maybe starting to look a little more like Corbin Carroll the last 2 weeks.
No homers in that line.
Yeah. It's a 407 OBP the last 14 days. 0 homers, 3 steals, 14 runs, couple of RBIs in there as well. So it's still not quite right. I did end up lowering Carroll to the same spot as CJ Abrams in the makeshift rankings as I'm putting those together. I think those players are extremely similar in terms of my categorical expectations right now. Now that Carroll picked up this injury over the weekend, I think you flip them. I think you would have to take CJ Abrams over Carroll rest of season, just because this is a day-to-day thing. Yeah, you're just worried about this being another ailment aside from shoulder stuff. And
Corbin Carroll showed up on the do not buy buy low
Yeah.
list.
The don't buy. The Blues don't buy list.
I don't know. It's really, these kind of players are really difficult for me because you have somewhat of an established track record. You have things that your eyes tell you. We're like, this is a dynamic young player with speed and power, and then the peripherals are just like awful. Right now. There's just not really anything to hold on to with them,
Yeah.
I think it's something I think at this point I'm on the don't buy low for this season. But I think I'm still on the buy low in keepers.
You're still on the, if I'm not playing for right now, I can make a deal and maybe get a player that would have been almost untradeable this time last summer before the pre-All-Star break shoulder stuff kind of popped up and changed everything we've seen for most of the last calendar year for Corbin Carroll. Trea Turner's back for the Phillies, by the way. Kind of amazing that they played so well while he was gone.
Oh, my God.
He just didn't even... You almost didn't notice. Unless he was on your team, you didn't notice because the Phillies have been unbelievable. Edmundo Sosa would simply play less as a result of Turner's return. And they're dealing with another injury right now. JT Realmuto down. I don't think we talked about that last week because of the timing of the injury, but he had meniscus surgery. So that's going to take him out for a little while.
Who has meniscus? Marsh? No.
Realmuto.
Yes. Yeah. There was some talk locally about moving Turner to the outfield because Edmundo Sosa had played so well. That got shouted down a little bit in the blogosphere. I don't know how terrible of an idea it is, considering that. Okay, so some projections have Sosa for 6% better than league average, some for just slightly below league average. And right now he's 136 WRC plus and showing more power than we've ever seen. That could just be a small sample mirage, but if he is 10% better than league average and plays a good shortstop, maybe it could be time to put Turner in center field, because I'm not sure that Johan Rojas is a league average bat. And maybe your best defensive team right now is Sosa at short, Turner in center, Marsh and Castellanos, I guess. He's not very good defensively, but that would be your best defensive team.
That would be interesting if they went that route. Worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I would just watch Sosa's playing time once Turner comes back. I mean, if you hear anything about Turner with an outfield glove, then you go buy Sosa, I think.
More injury to talk about here. We've got Bryan Woo, and it's been kind of a strange month and change for Woo, even a little before that. I mean, he's been dealing with some forearm tightness, forearm discomfort.
What was it that he missed the beginning of the season with?
Forearm.
Yeah, so it's been the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, and they had an MRI. So he got scratched from a start last week. He had an MRI. That came back clean. He's supposed to make his scheduled start this week. And kind of around all of that, he's pitched really well.
Mm-hmm.
He said his last 4 starts, he's gone 6 innings. He's only given up a total of 3 earned runs. All of those came in one outing against the Nationals. So 3 starts where he's given them 6 scoreless. And on and off sort of forearm problems. Results for the season through 6 starts have been excellent. I don't know what to do in a situation like this. I mean, we just saw Kyle Bradish go back on the IL with the UCL sprain, and that was what cost him time to begin the season. I always feel like it's inevitable that the thing that keeps nagging at you is going to get worse if you keep trying to push through it, even though I think the Mariners are doing everything they reasonably can do, at least from the outside looking in, to make sure that there's not a more significant problem for Bryan Woo.
Yeah, I'm a little pessimistic about his health. And here's the weird reason behind it for me. He threw his slider like 30% of the time last year. And he's throwing it like 5% of the time this year. Like, I know that some of this might be, outcome based. Like, he's getting better outcomes. Maybe he shouldn't throw the slider that much. But, paired with the injury thing, I'm like, what if he's not throwing the breaking balls because they don't feel good?
It would be a very logical explanation, because by results, the slider wasn't a bad pitch for him last year, was it?
No.
I think it was.
By season here, let me see. What did he do? The slider had 348 slugging. I guess. I mean, a 294 WOBA. Like it's pretty good. And
he got whiffs with it.
Like, yeah,
it was a good pitch for. I remember looking at him in the winter, and nothing seemed like.
And it's not like he replaced it with another secondary. He's just been throwing a ton of fastballs.
Yeah,
it's just weird. I think you're just happy to get a start from Bryan.
Yeah.
What else can you do? You're not going to drop him preemptively, and yeah.
I hope it works out.
It just
hope
seems
they
like
found a way through it.
Headed towards some injury.
Right. It's unfortunate, but that's just the on again, off again nature. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster just trying to get him healthy and into each of his starts throughout this season. Let's get to some hitter rankings movers. I find that a group of players right now that I have the most difficulty with are the air quotes new players in the player pool. It's guys that we've seen for a little while this year who maybe didn't have a big league track record prior to this season, or if they did, it was minimal. Like you couldn't really draw any sort of conclusion from it.
So you're back in like April with these guys, basically.
Yeah, you're kind of in the early days of the season. You're at least in an earlier part of the calendar with these players than you are with guys that have been up all season who also have previous years that you can really lean on. David Fry, we talked about him a few weeks ago as someone that just popped up and is putting up great numbers. It's continuing. We've seen 51 games now. It's 175 plate appearances. He's popped 8 homers. He's stolen 4 bases, a 314, 440, 543 line. Very unexpected. He's a 2-WAR player. He's on pace to be a 6-win guy.
Yeah.
Like what can you reasonably expect the rest of the way for a guy like David Fry, who's just taking this opportunity and really running with it this year in Cleveland, and someone who looks quite a bit better in terms of plate discipline with a little more time in the big leagues, right? His first exposure last year was a higher K rate, lower walk rate. He did have a better barrel rate, but I would say the swing decisions have changed a lot.
Drastically.
And he's still hitting the ball hard, like even a little more so than he did last year, even though the barrel rate came down. Like there's a ton to like in the profile.
I will say that the batted ball profile does not super well line up with the home run rate. You know, like he has a 543 slugging, David Fry does, and a 229 ISO, and he has a 108.5 max EV and 8% barrel rate. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of a gulf between those two numbers.
So the raw might be exaggerated.
Yeah, I think this is a true talent 20 homer hitter.
But is he a true talent 20 homer guy that because of his place in the kind of heart of this Cleveland lineup,
that's
going to be really good? Yeah, really good with run production and has some speed, and of course because he's got catcher eligibility.
I mean, yeah, he should be owned in all leagues.
Is he a top 10 catcher though? Like, are we talking single catcher leagues?
Yeah, why not? I mean, think about him versus Keibert Ruiz.
I think it's a snap David Fry for people right now. If you're in a single catcher league, you say, if Fry were somehow still available, yeah, I'll take my chances on Fry. If I'm wrong, I'm not going to be any worse off than I was with Keibert Ruiz because it just has not worked out the way we thought it would this year for Ruiz.
Yeah. Other catchers near the bottom, Moreno, Jeffers.
Yeah, Moreno was on the don't buy list too. I think I would take Jeffers over Fry. This is a would you rather. I'd still take Jeffers over Fry.
Okay.
I think so.
And you'd take Cal Raleigh over Fry?
Yeah, and I think with Raleigh, it's the extreme confidence that the playing time is just so safe. His defensive value.
I have to say, the Bat X has Fry fifth
among catchers the rest of the way.
Yeah.
That probably takes a couple of injured guys now. That's still impressive regardless.
I'm going to tell my son he's looking for some help here. I think he might just tell him in a 6-team league, he should pick up David Fry.
Yeah, I think for me, the Ryan Jeffers thing probably comes back to a little more power too. Like I'll give up the average from Fry for that higher power ceiling. I actually think we've seen consistent power from Ryan Jeffers as a shared catcher for a long time. Double-digit barrel rates every single year he's been in the big leagues. That to me is a little bit of a difference maker, but it's not a ridiculous question at all.
Yeah, I have, so you have actually some numbers here with Addison, Barger, and Spencer Horwitz. You know, you don't even know like what the playing pattern is. You know, like you don't have enough batted balls to really say anything. And you're kind of looking at the depth chart, trying to figure it out. I think Horwitz is the second baseman mostly, and Schneider is the left fielder, and Varsho's the center fielder, and Springer's the DH. Sometimes right fielder.
Yeah, I think they're still going to play Springer in the outfield because Justin Turner's really more of the defensively limited.
So then you have to ask
DH.
yourself: Is Barger the third baseman?
He played right field on Sunday. Played
Yeah,
third
right
on
field on
Saturday.
Sunday.
Played right on Sunday.
I would say that Barger has less of a hold on his job than Horwitz.
I would agree. Yep.
Horwitz is a little bit more boring, but maybe higher floor because he's demonstrated the ability to make contact and had average-ish power at most stops. So you're hoping for sort of a polished hitter that keeps the lineup moving, that, you know, is 5-6% better than league average just by making contact and having it be non-zero power. Whereas Barger, I think, has a little bit more of a lower floor, higher ceiling situation, which is what is his strikeout rate going to look like? We actually have no idea. If you look at his minor league numbers, Addison Barger, he has 33% strikeout rates in big samples, and he has, 19% strikeout rates in big samples. And so, some of that 19% is more recent. So maybe you think, oh, he made an adjustment. But then he comes to the big leagues and he's been whiffing a little bit in the small sample we've got. If he whiffs more like 30%, then he has to have the upper reaches of his power, which means he has to get to that power quickly or he's back down again, is how I read it.
Yeah, Barger's done a nice job whittling away at that swing and miss, though. Like, if you look back at 21, early 2022, and you look at that profile, I think you'd have a lot more concern about the strikeout rate going completely through the roof. Whereas now I look at him and say, okay, it might be a little bit high. It might be 28%, 30%, something in that range, but something you could live with if he's getting to the power consistently. It is challenging because I think in some ways Horwitz is the safer real life player. And the fact they're leading him off, he could be a table setter for them. If that lineup gets going, that could make him valuable. But Barger, I think, has that power speed combo that we gravitate toward a little bit more. We're maybe looking at the high 20s.
Yeah, Horwitz might be a really boring fantasy line.
Yeah. So do you want the guy that's more likely to keep the job, or do you want the guy that's more likely to, do categorical damage for us?
And also, like, how do you rank that? It's where it's like, 80% likely to be boring versus like 30% likely to be outstanding.
Placement on a list does not convey all that information, but that's what I find. Like, when I do these in-season updates, I'm like, this is why this takes so long, because I'm like, I think this makes sense. Then I look at it again, I'm like, no, that's not even close. Try again. And projections aren't that helpful here. And you're trying to forecast playing time on a projection that skills-wise is maybe a little wobbly too, because the inputs are limited because of the up and downs.
And plate appearances are at the heart of every difference in opinion. I mean, that's why I picked Ellie de la Cruz, because I just thought there's no way he's getting 500 plate appearances. I don't know why you guys are projecting for that.
I think the other guy that's fun to try and place here is a little easier to start to figure out. It's David Hamilton. He gets occasional days off against lefties. But if you look back, I think he started 7 of the last 8 games as this new week begins. He's moved to a more prominent spot in the lineup and was running wild on the Yankees on Sunday night.
And he's survived a challenge. I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a moment they were like, Cedano Rafael is going to play some shortstop, right? And then he didn't. So I just think that's kind of like, maybe he's their shortstop. And I've talked a lot about that on this podcast already. Like, he's their shortstop. That's already a big deal. I also think that given a 9% swing strike rate, a 25% strikeout rate for David Hamilton seems a little bit outsized. I think he could actually whittle that away a little bit.
Right.
The batted ball power is not why you pick him up, but it's not 0-0. He could hit maybe 10 homers in a season. And it looks like he could steal 40. He's still 50,
maybe more than that. He's 18 for 19 already with just 150 plate appearances. So this player profile was very different in the previous rules for disengagements and the smaller bases.
Oh, I would not have been in on this guy at all, probably, in those rules.
I would have been with like more of a 10 homer 30 steal ceiling, but like knowing that it could be 5 homers instead of 10, and if he got through a stretch where he's just not hitting enough, like he's not going to steal bases because he's not on base enough. But I think David Hamilton does enough things well where he becomes like very shallow league relevant in places where he wasn't previously. And it's pretty amazing because he runs so much that it elevates his profile to that level. But also that lineup position has changed a little bit too. He's moved up in the order a lot in the past week. I think he's had 4 starts where he's hit second. So that opens up some opportunities for him as well. It is interesting that when David Hamilton takes a seat, that's when Rafaela plays shortstop. So basically against lefties, Rafaela's the shortstop. And against righties, it's David Hamilton.
And I think that could change. But it's worth pointing out that the projections, this is a Lodem situation. The BATX has David Hamilton as the 32nd best shortstop going forward. Some of that is plate appearances. They have 222 for David Hamilton and something like 307 for Geraldo Perdomo, who's right ahead of him in the rankings. And so if you gave David Hamilton more like 330, I'm sure he would move past Bryce Turang, who's 24th, but he would be in that character, in that Mason Wynn, Bryce Turang, low 20s part of the rankings. Still low to me for me. I mean, you're kind of maybe buying him for a need, rather than thinking that he's a better shortstop than Zach Neto or Nico Horner, who's healthy when he's healthy,
Yeah, and I think I think the Turang categorical comp is fair. Turang's playing time is safer at this point just because he's been up longer and plays Gold Glove defense at second base. That's extra like weight, and I wonder like is the ceiling for a player like Turang and perhaps like David Hamilton, we'll know more about him as he spends more time in the big leagues. Is it fair to put it at the level of, I don't know, what Andres Jimenez did 2 seasons ago, or what Bryson Stott did
like
last
a good
year?
Tommy Edman season?
Yeah, like these players tend to top out mostly around like pick 75 during a fresh draft season. So if you did a second chance draft, maybe things would be a little bit different. But I think
don't see a power profile in here where they turn into Ramirez or Lindor or something, where they add that power aspect and make themselves, a top 3 rounder or something. So I don't know if I'm reading between the lines of what you're saying, but on some level, these types could be sell highs in dynasties and stuff.
They just seem
like a Mason Wynn. Like, what does a peak Mason Wynn season look like? And will somebody else maybe value that higher than you would?
I think Wynn maybe has a little more power. Not a lot, though. I mean, the scouting grades, 35 present, 50 game power for the future, 40 present, 50 raw for the future.
The max EVs are, there's a little up and down because they're smaller samples, but they're similar.
Yeah. So I think it is that cluster is probably more his ceiling. That's still a really good outcome. If that's what you are as a player, and that's the kind of guy you get off the waiver wire, or in the case of Mason Wynn, someone you got with one of your last 5, one of your last 7 picks in a lot of mixed leagues, you're really happy getting those players there because you didn't pay a 5th round pick or a 6th round pick to get a good average.
But if you're like a first, if you're a team that's in competition for winning it all, and you got Win on your team, like it might be an acceptable loss for plugging all the holes you need.
Yeah, I wonder what the stolen base ceiling is for Win. He's not running at quite the same clip as even David Hamilton so far, right? But he's 8 for 11, and he's getting on base at a 339 rate. That's fine. That's good, especially for his first full season in the big leagues. This is a good overall year. Now, the other way I would look at it too, the other player that kind of fits in that bucket is Nico Horner. And I just think that average and speed over everything else, I don't like paying the premium for those players because I think they are somewhat findable in season. They tend to emerge because speed is easier to generate now in the big league. Stolen bases are not as difficult. We know that. Like it's been very clear now this season and last that the new rules just completely changed that position.
Yeah. And yeah, it's more, stolen bases available. Yeah. It's like, in 2019, how did you value in 2019 a guy who hit 250 with like 28 homers?
Right. They were relatively easy to find. So they just weren't as good. Yeah, you needed more power, but everybody was able to just get it from their fourth or fifth outfielder or their corner. Like it was there. It was abundant. So that's sort of where I'm at with this kind of player profile. Like, yeah, that's the ceiling. And then where do you stop along the way? Hamilton versus I actually found Hamilton versus Carlos Correa was the debate in my head that I was kicking around because Correa doesn't steal bases.
Yeah.
Correa is such a strange player. I like him. I see the
projections have
value.
Carlos Correa right ahead of Mason Wynn.
Yeah. I think they are fully acknowledging the limitations that come from giving you nothing in the stolen base category, even though most players give you something. And then there's also baked in this idea that maybe Carlos Correa is not going to be great in batting average. I tend to think the projections are light on Correa's batting average, so that ranking's a tick low.
274 for his career, 308 right now with a high BABIP for Correa, and then 260 in the projections for a lot of them.
And he was 291 in 2022, and I think we know he just wasn't healthy despite playing through it in 2023 when things came down to that 230 level. So
there's an interesting thing there that just an idea. I don't know if we need to flesh it out more. It's definitely off the rundown, but just Manny Machado right now is playing hurt, and there's people have like shared images of him like sort of loafing it to first and not looking great. There is sometimes like, would you rather your guy played hurt or didn't?
I think in the one breath, the people that are going to frequently call out the effort of a player, whether it's Manny Machado or otherwise, they would be mad. They'd be more mad that he's not playing than he's not hustling. It's like, well, what do you actually want?
And from a production standpoint, though, it's a worthwhile question. I guess from a production standpoint for a real life team, they say, is Manny Machado better than Tyler Wade at the plate?
Yeah, it really depends on who is the backup option. How deep is your team? What characteristics
does the backup matters have? When you're team building, so you can be like, you know what, dude, just take the break. We have a good option. Tyler Wade's not, I don't think, necessarily a great option for your fantasy team. I think you would, the shallower league, the more you'd rather they just go on the IL.
I mean, the Machado ranking is actually tough right now too, because I don't think his long-term trajectory is quite as bleak as Nolan Arenado's just yet.
Yeah. I mean,
but I also can't completely separate the injuries he's dealing with right now from like this guarantee that he'll be healthy in the future. Like, what if he's just dealing with stuff going forward?
And then what if his sort of high pain threshold, specifically, Manny Machado has come out and played on ankles that were torn, and now I think he's playing with a strained hip flexor. That seems pretty obvious when you see him run. It's not good for his production on the field. But if you're in a 15-team league, would you rather have Manny Machado sort of limping out there than have to go, find a third baseman on the wire right now?
Yeah. I mean, this was a pretty light week on the wire, as we'll get to in just a minute. So I feel like the default is I'm definitely holding on to Machado, but in leagues where you're trying to get better, especially keeper leagues, like a veteran like him, despite the track record, comes at a nice discount when we're getting close to the mid-season point and things are clearly not right.
Yeah, so it's buy in a keeper league.
It's an opportunity. Yeah, is he actually going to help get you over the top? Is the second half going to be more like vintage Machado? Is he the kind of guy that gets the actual break during the All-Star break? That little run kind of makes him feel better, and then he kind of goes off for 2 months and change to close things out, or is that just wish casting?
Yeah. And the projections, of course, are somewhere in between 260, 15 homers, 4 stolen bases. It's like, it's not going to really, I doubt it looks like that,
It's probably better. Or
it's probably better or worse.
I know the distribution is supposed to be like what
Most
it
likely
is.
outcome, yeah.
And my brain's like, no, he's either healthy and he's better, or he's still hurt and he's worse.
Yeah.
In the middle, it's not even. Yes, he could be healthier for some stretch, and new injuries could slow him down at some point. Like I know the projections are supposed to ground.
It seems a little bit more like he's going to hit 280 with 20 homers going on forward, or he's going to hit 240 with another 12 homers.
Yeah, and then we'll have the off-season conversations of, is he going to recover? Is he back? Is he a good oatmeal buy? Is he going to be another, I don't know, Rendon type where it's just he's hurt all the time? That's not fair to put on anybody, but it's the type of question that comes up when you start to see big time wear and tear pile up, and then you worry about more lost time. At least Machado.
Oh my God! Did you see what the I think it was Petriello came up with for Simeon's combined plate appearances last year? I think it was 900.
900?
Yeah, with spring training in the postseason.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. You don't usually see it presented that way, so it'd be so jarring if it was on a stat line.
Yeah. I don't know.
The Machado skills question, though, here's a couple things that make me think that it's still all generally good in there.
The max CV is decent.
Right. He's not chasing at some alarming rate. The barrel rate is still within his range over the course of his career. It's in the lower end of a range we've seen from him. And we know he's dealt with stuff before.
Is right where it's been.
Still squaring it up enough to get to a 48.2% hard hit rate. The reason the barrel rate's down is because the ground ball rate is up. I don't think that's a permanent flaw.
When I looked at it, he was kind of swinging at sliders that were in the zone low. Maybe in the sort of like protect mode, 2-strike mode, something like that. And in the past, he's just kind of let those go and waited for something better. It could be something really small like that. And then injury, of course. Like if he's not running well, like his BABIP is going to be great.
Yeah. I think that's what's going to be funny about the projections going forward is if 240 something ends up being the final number, or even 250 something. I think projections are going to really gobble that up from 24 and 23. And what you see spit out for 2025 is going to be on the low side relative to the player he was not that long ago. And that's going to be a story you start to tell yourself if you believe that he's going to be good oatmeal.
Buying next year, yeah.
Yeah, he can get back to 270, 280. Wouldn't be that big of a surprise. A play every day guy. Defense is still good. Like I can already tell myself the story of the bounce back.
Of how I picked Manny Machado in the 7th round next year and profited.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not like the Bogart situation as
a lot of things were pointing towards him being in a good bounce back opportunity too.
Let's take a look at where the money went this weekend. People chasing some saves in Seattle and Toronto. The other injury we didn't talk about up top, Yimi Garcia has an elbow injury of unknown severity right now. So we did see Chad Green bids thrown out there. I think that makes a good bit of sense because even if it's a minor elbow injury, which those words don't even go together, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Chad Green, an intriguing option to pick up some saves for the Jays.
Romano right now,
trying to get back from his latest IL stint.
He threw from 90 feet.
That was a few days ago too. So yeah, they're trying to be careful.
It's one of those things where I'm fully on board with Chad Green as a healthy contributor and good pitcher. I don't know how long his stint as closer would be. It's kind of the same story I told when Yimi Garcia was available,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, fine, buy him. But and for what it's worth, most of the buys that I've seen in 15 teams leagues were $5, $15, $20.
Yeah,
so
pretty inexpensive.
I can get behind that for sure. We in the main event put down $15 on him and lost to 25, and that was the biggest number I saw in my leagues.
The Ryan Stanek pickups were concentrated at least at 12 teamers. Maybe he was already gone in the 15s, but I was surprised when I was looking at what the Mariners have been doing with the saves. Andres Munoz does not have a save in June. He has made 4 appearances this month, and he's been banged up. So that's part of why he hasn't worked
back
that many innings.
It's been weird. It seems like they've been trying to bring him back. I think they're trying to bring him back to the closer role, but it's been weird. They've used him sparingly and like sometimes the first reliever out of the pen.
Yeah. And Stanek has 4 saves in June, including a save in each of his last 3 appearances. So on the one hand, it kind of looks like they're messing around again. There was a point when Andres Munoz was probably their best reliever and Paul Sewell was getting the saves. I don't know if we're going back down that road again. Stanek is interesting, though, because he's improved the walk rate and he's held it from last year. It's even better than it was a season ago.
Yeah.
But he's not striking as many guys out.
Yeah.
Even though he's got a pretty good swinging strike rate. So, I mean, I think it could work for Ryan Stanek, but I do wonder if he's got the ceiling of more of like a third-tier closer, even if he ends up with more job security than we expected.
Ryan Stanek is above James McArthur?
It's got to be.
Yeah. Ryan Stanek is above, let's see here. Kenley Jansen? No. He's not above Craig Kimbrell. Alexis Diaz.
Yeah, that's where you start to think about it. I mean, Alexis Diaz just something does not look right with his command.
Yeah,
all over the place. Command's never been his strength, but
I mean, him and his brother both. When they're not going well, it's command is likely the story.
He's been extremely hittable in the zone. He's not getting swing strikes the way he used to, and the walk rate's as bad as it's been during any point in Cincinnati for Alexis Diaz.
I do think I might like Stanek better than somebody like a Jose Alvarado because I just have I have no faith in Philadelphia in terms of picking a closer and sticking with it.
They're so good though.
Yeah,
got a career high. He's got 12 already.
Alvarado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Alvarado over Stanek for me would be where I'm at right now. Same tier.
Tanner Scott.
Yeah, Tanner Scott also.
He could also just stop closing because he got traded to another team.
He's in the Alexis Diaz control is just awful right now position. 16% walk rate again, and we've seen it from Tanner Scott before. It's not fresh from him. Diaz usually lives in the 12% range. Scott's been here before, and now he's back. The ratios have somehow been really good, in part because he's just so tough to hit. But only 8 saves this year for Tanner Scott. Team's bad. Could get traded. I think I'm slight edge Stanek over Tanner Scott. Well, I think we've got a good placement for him at least.
We saw. I saw some big bids for Drew Thorpe and Cade Povich.
Yeah, I think Cade Povich interest jumped a little bit for 2 reasons. We saw Kyle Bradish go back down with that UCL sprain, which feels ominous. Knocked him out for a month to begin the season, and Povich went 6 scoreless against Atlanta, 6 strikeouts last time out too. So he pitched well. The thing that kept me away, at least in shallow leagues, though, is that you really don't want to use Cade Povich this week. He's got the Yankees, so you weren't going to pick him up and use him. You had to pick him up and stash him in leagues where he was available.
I think also I'm worried that the fastball's bad. He got a 45-50 from Fangraphs and 73 stuff plus on a pitch that, and a stat that stabilizes quickly and tells you a lot early on. He had a 115 stuff less on the cutter, and in the second start, he used the cutter a little bit more. But if he goes to the cutter as his primary fastball, he reduces even the little velocity he already had. So he's at 92 with the poopy fastball. He's at 88 with the slightly better cutter. Now he's asked if you're establishing with the 88 mile an hour cutter, then all of your secondaries, the 82 mile an hour slider, the 76 mile an hour curve, the 85 mile an hour changeup, are now playing off the 88. The batter is now starting his swing at 88, and it's not like 92 is that great to begin with, but that's a lower velocity band. So that could affect his outcomes on the secondary pitches. The second start, he looked a lot more like the composed pitcher that, if he's successful, I think it's command and a lot of pitches, and there is still that ability, but he had a 45-60 present future command grade. And to me, there's just a gulf of outcomes between those two. If he's more 45 and he's had high walk rates, Povich has had recently. If he's 45 command with a 92 mile an hour fastball that doesn't have good shape, I'm out. I don't think he's going to be good. I hate to be so strong about it, but like that's if he has 60 command and he has all these other pitches, then maybe it's going to work.
I'm going to put him more in that Robert Gasser bucket where I like him a little more than you do. And maybe it's kind of like the Andrew Abbott stuff we talked about on Friday, but with a slightly deeper arsenal and not having to pitch in Cincinnati. Even
he does throw the fastball mostly high. Like he definitely is like living at the top of the zone with that thing.
Yeah. So if that's the location strategy, and because he has 5 total pitches, maybe he can cut that usage down a little bit more, not lean too heavily on the cutter. There's probably a way this can work, but I do think Cade Povich became a lot more important for the 2024 Orioles with that injury news that we got on Kyle Bradish, which never good to go back with the same arm injury as we've talked about so many times before. Yeah. How about DJ Herz?
I wonder, like, what do you think of Thorpe? I guess it sounds like we both have Thorpe below Povich then.
Only it's not because I don't think Drew Thorpe can find a way to make it work also, but the team context, like if these guys are also in the same tier in terms of general skills and expectations,
Thorpe might not win a game.
Thorpe may be very light on wins, and I think there's still going to be some growing pains there, despite the success he's had really at every minor league stop.
Because
even if he's someone I like,
the changeup, it's not. He has to figure out how to pitch backwards off a changeup, which is not easy.
And I just think I don't want to be there absorbing the ratio damage while he learns that. I think he can learn that, but he's going to do it on a bad team where you're just not going to get a lot of help in the interim. So hope it works for him. I'm not as excited about Drew Thorpe in the short term as other people seem to have been with their bids. But DJ Herz, this made me wonder, like, do the Nationals have something going on with their pitching? It's not the first national starter we've had pop up and perform really well unexpectedly. 13 Ks. Yeah, okay. It was against the Marlins. 13 Ks, no walks, 1 hit in 6 innings for DJ Herz over the weekend. So that got people excited, understandably so. We're looking for pitching in every corner. This was a pretty minor trade. They got him from the Cubs, I believe it was last summer. And you look at some of the numbers he put up after being brought over to the Nats organization, a 2.55 ERA, a 1.13 whip, 53 Ks and 35 and a third innings at AA. This year at AAA, the walk rate jumped to 19%. We've seen high walk rates from him. We've talked about high walk rate starters and where it starts to break down. But man, DJ Herz misses a lot of bats. And it seems like minor league hitters at least couldn't really ever square him up because he's rarely had problems with home runs as well. So what do you think the next few months brings for DJ Herz?
Could it be like a little bit of ABS, jumping his walk rate to 19%, and he's actually more like a 13%, 14% guy, true talent, Herz in terms of walk rate? If he is, that's right on the line of doable. That's, what we could name the line after Edward Cabrera, maybe. And so, then you start to think, well, is he getting better framing now? And is he away from ABS? And like, could he have a 10% walk rate? And if you could have a 10% walk rate, then I would predict success for him. But it is hard to look at, 14 innings and say he's figured out his command.
Yeah, I didn't have the strong urge to get him everywhere I could because I don't know what's coming next. I felt like everybody I looked at as a possible drop wasn't an obvious, like, okay, DJ Herz is an upgrade. Plus, his next start is at Colorado against the Rockies. And I just thought, I don't want to stash him. I'm not sure enough to stash him the start after that's on the road at San Diego. So you have to feel good enough to use him in that spot. I think by deep league standards, you'd probably take your chance on that, almost regardless what happens in Colorado. But yeah, I didn't see that coming at all from DJ Herz. I don't know if anybody did.
I bought a couple shares of a player that I've seen zero buzz about, but has 2 starts this week. Carson Spires,
Yeah.
and what I like about him is the command grade, the command grades that he's been given, and the walk rates and the location plus don't all line up. So I think there is actually good command in Carson Spires. And the thing that I really like, even though the stuff plus is not great, is he has 3 fastballs. He has 3 distinct fastballs of different shapes. He's going to be able to throw those in, only to the right platoon side. He's going to have a fastball strategy, no matter if you're a lefty or righty. And he's going to mix all 3 of those up in ways that are going to keep batters off balance. And he had really good results at AAA where the ABS was. And I think he's just sort of a maturing 26-year-old, lower ceiling, but maybe a higher floor than the projections are suggesting. They're all saying a 5 ERA, and I don't know. This is somebody who's going to walk the tightrope for me, I think.
Yeah, I think he's pretty interesting in this profile. Always gives me the Zach Littell vibes now. Where strike out the walk
always
is good,
in the zone with
runs,
a couple of good pitches.
Might come out, just chew up 5, sometimes 6 innings, and not give up much. And that is really nice to have in your back pocket, given some of the problems they had. I mean, we said it on Friday. Graham Ashcraft being at AAA right now is a big part of why the door is open for Carson Spires. I would love to know. I have not had a chance to dig into this yet, but something seemingly changed for him when he went back to AA for the second time. And he's a little old for the level anyway, because he had a major home run issue in 2022.
The K's spiked.
Yeah, the K's came up. The walks came up too, but he struck more guys out, didn't have a home run problem anymore, just got a lot better year over year. And usually we're not that excited about 24-year-olds that didn't do well at AA getting better when they go back to that level. But he looks like a different pitcher since.
Pitching is so nonlinear for me. It like people can turn on a dime. It could be something as simple as he added that 3rd fastball. Like what if he added the cutter, on returning to AA that year? And now all of a sudden he has 3 fastballs, and it's like it all starts to work out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I know age. I'm not poo-pooing age at level. Age at level is a very important part of analysis. I just think it may be slightly less important for pitchers, because you're just asking whether or not they have an arsenal that works. That's the real question.
I will once again ask, do you know where pitchers are coming from? Like, it's every corner right now.
Yeah,
they're coming from all over the place, and we're seeing converted relievers from college become good starters as pros. Like, just
Bryce Miller, my God,
smaller college programs, indie ball. Like, he
was a non-drafted FA in that 2020 draft, where once the first 5 rounds went, you could decide where you signed. So he signed with Cincinnati in 2020 when Kyle Bodie was there. So he chose the Reds.
Yeah, that 5-round draft that was just so weird in 2020. From the drop side, a lot of injuries. I saw Christian Encarnacion, Strand, Bradish, Ben Brown. Injury news on him going to the weekend. Henry Davis is hurt again. A bunch of those guys got dropped. But did you have any tough cuts, any healthy tough cuts from the weekend?
I finally dropped MJ Melendez in one league.
Our talk last week convinced you, huh?
Yeah. Then he had a grand slam like on the Sunday or something, and I was like, should I? I might make one that'll hurt me later. I did drop Blaze Alexander. He is playing third base a little bit more. There's an outside chance he takes that third base job, and I just dropped him for Spencer Horwitz. That would be dumb. And then, no big drops. One name that I saw on the list that would have been difficult for me that I ended up keeping, and I saw on your drops list, was Tyler Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy with Tyler Freeman and what he has done for my teams. I'm happy with his peripherals. But I will say that, that May when he was hitting 239, I thought we could push this boulder up the hill to the point where he was hitting 260 with 15-15, right? I did think the batting average is going in the right direction. June, he's hitting 225 again. And I don't really have a reason for it. I mean, when I see stuff like this, I'm like, oh, he must have a 50% fly ball rate. No. Oh, he must be like really weak noodled with hitting the ball. And like, he's not amazing there, but 38% hard hit, 109 max EV, 5% barrel rate. That's non-zero power. So it's not, he's noodling the ball. Then he strikes out too much. No, he doesn't strike out too much. So I do not know why he can't hit for a good average, but I guess most people are just deciding he can't, which I don't blame them. It's been 3 months now almost of 220 batting average.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because maybe he got one day off in that weekend series. He got a day off the week before, but he's playing a ton. Tyler Freeman's been a huge part of the Guardians' plan.
Fielder. Like defensively, he's stealing homers and they're playing him at the top of the lineup too.
Right. I think his playing time is still pretty sticky. I think the questions about his skills are not going away. And I will use this as my opportunity for the 26th time this season to remind everybody that a 98 WRC plus can come from a 223, 313 hitter. So the environment, it is so frustrating, but it is the way things are. I mean, if you double up what he's done so far, 12 homers, 16 steals, 70 runs, 54 RBIs, that'd be 124 games.
He will probably be he'll be a productive in the auction calculator at the end of the year. He'll be a productive player. He'll be
like
above
a
zero.
$6 player or something at the end of the year in 15 team leagues, and multi-position eligibility is nice. And where he's hitting in the order, I think would be enough where, I don't know, what are you chasing instead? I saw Jared Kelenic got picked up by a bunch of people because with Michael Harris down, Kelenic let off a couple of times and homered in back-to-back games over the weekend. Like, is that where you're at for a would you rather? Like, do you want the steady Eddie from Tyler Freeman versus the, hey, Jared Kelenic could still be the guy we hoped he was?
Yeah. We did a pickup in the main event, Jorge Mateo. They've been running through options at second base, and it's starting to look like it's Jorge Mateo's job.
The guy that we were sure would end up either being a clear backup or getting bumped off the roster is still hanging on. He didn't play Saturday or Sunday. He didn't get hurt again, did he? I know Tuesday was his first game back from the IL. He started it short that day, and he started 3 consecutive games.
Mateo's not in the starting lineup for Sunday's game, Rach Kubako reports. So he just reported that he's not in the lineup. Okay.
Well, yeah, I think it was just there was no reason given. Right?
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
Or anything. They went Westberg at second, Henderson at short, Ramon Urias at third, and those were against righties. And 2 of those 4 starts for Mateo did come against lefties. So I still think his playing time might be a little lighter than every day, even if he's a bigger part of the plan than we thought.
Yeah. We also have Mullins on that team. So I think part of what we're doing is just trying to maybe have the right guy when the dust settles, because Mullins has been showing these little signs of life, and he had this great slide. I don't know if you saw it, but he had this great slide in the 10th inning, or was it the 9th inning just to tie it or something. But he does have hits in 5 straight games. Cedric Mullins, signs of life.
I mean, the projection for the rest of the season is still good, and it's a big part of why I'm having a hard time lowering him, as much as some people would want me to. The rest of season projection still calls for 12 homers, 19 steals from the Bat X. 232, 296, 405. Guess what? It's a 101 WRC plus.
Yeah,
I hate that game. It's the worst game.
Yeah, and his defense is keeping him on the field. I mean, that was the one thing that has helped me hold on to him in the deeper leagues, has just been like, he's playing, And I know that there's been some sitting, but it kind of seems like now he's starting against righties and percolating a little bit.
Man, it's one of those calls that I thought was a good one when you made it, and I don't know why it's gone this badly for Cedric Mullins so far in 2024. And those little glimmers of hope are just enough to keep you in. at times when you might have otherwise considered getting an upgrade or trying to get an upgrade off of the wire.
Well, Perfito seems like a good buy with the Jose Abreu news.
Right.
And
Jose
then he's
Abreu
not optioned.
DFA'd.
But he's not in the big leagues right now.
They had to wait to bring him back, right? Because I think you have to stay down for.
They optioned him on the 11th, so he can be back in 4 days.
Yeah, it's a 10-day thing unless you're replacing someone who goes on the IL.
So they're doing a lot of Singleton right now, but I didn't see anybody buy Singleton.
Nope, I didn't see that either. So maybe the door opens again for Joey Low Perfito. We're going to go long episode today, but got a lot of great stuff coming up all week. Got Britt coming back on Tuesday, so we're looking forward to that. You can find Eno on Twitter at EnoSaris. You can find me at Derek Van Riper. Find the pod at Rates and Barrels. Get a subscription to The Athletic, theathletic.com/Rates and Barrels. That's going to do it for this episode of the pod. We're back with you on Tuesday.
Thanks for listening.